Okay, so welcome, our first meeting together on a virtual session for the Akivo New and Emerging Leaders programme. This will be one of many times we'll get together, and of course it's always very exciting to see faces for the first time. We're going to start off this morning. We're very fortunate that Jane Ide has been able to join us. Jane's the Chief Executive of Akivo, so of course she's the person who's in charge of getting this all happening and supporting the members, and this is one element of that. So Jane, if you're happy, I'll hand straight over to you.
Thanks, Rita. I'm delighted. I have to say, thankfully, I'm not actually in charge of organising anything very much.
Oh, you organise nothing.
Yeah, no, I just delegate. Isn't that the job of the chief exec?
Perfect leadership, you see.
Swim around, make people delegate things. No, I'm really delighted to be here and meet you all. Just a little bit of introduction. So I am, as Rita says, I am the Chief Exec of Akivo, which is, for those of you that may not actually know us very well, because I know not everybody here will necessarily be a member of ours, we are the membership body for chief execs of, technically, according to the acronym, voluntary organisations, but actually we talk about civil society these days because it's a bit more of an encompassing term, across England and Wales. And as some of you will know, you don't have to exclusively be a chief executive to be a member. We have an associate membership for those who are aspiring chief execs or who are on that journey and looking towards their leadership. And one of the things I love about meeting a group like this is I can literally feel the energy coming towards me off the screen, because you are the people that are looking forward. You are coming with ambition and drive and energy into the most senior leadership roles in our sector, and that's what makes our sector rocket fueled. It's what we absolutely thrive and drive forward from. So it's lovely to have this opportunity to very briefly say hello. I don't know how long I've got, probably no more than a few minutes, because I imagine you've got an awful lot to be getting on with. So I will probably just leave it at that. I am available anytime anybody wants to have a chat about what it's like being a chief exec in the sector. This is now my third chief exec role. I've been here since the beginning of June, technically the end of May. I'm absolutely loving this job, but I've had a previous chief exec role which perhaps wasn't quite so much fun, so I know what it's like from both sides of the coin, and I'm very happy to drop in at any point during the programme, diaries allowing, if you'd like me to, and come and have a bit more of a chat, and available. I was going to say available for bar mitzvahs and weddings and funerals, but just drop me a note on email. I'm very easy to get hold of, jane.ide@akivo.org.uk, and very happy to be in touch.
Excellent. Thank you very much for those generous offers as well, Jane. And of course, we have got the two face-to-faces in London. If you were available to pop in at break time, lunchtime, that would be a delightful time.
Have we got the dates for those, Rita? I'll have a look in my diary.
We certainly have, and we'll make sure you've got them too.
Right, excellent. Well, if I can
one in October,
I should say, just from a practical point of view, you're in Yorkshire, I'm in Derbyshire, where it has been absolutely tipping it down today. So when I can get to, I do get down to London, and I'll be very happy to come and join you if I possibly can. So that'd be lovely. So,
fabulous and lovely to hear that you've got all these experiences.
Been around the block.
Sounds like some good stories there, Jane.
It sounds
definitely good. Very definitely. But I will love you and leave you, but I hope you will have an absolutely fantastic time, not just today but on the programme as a whole, and look forward to seeing many of you in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Yes, so the great news is we will be getting together face to face. Hopefully you've got those 2 dates in your diary. We're so looking forward to meeting you face to face. During the lockdown period, we actually ran 3 programs in this format, which were successful. But it's just not the same. I don't know whether you find that in your day-to-day roles that there's something missing when you only have this kind of contact. So we're really looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time, I think is the first one.
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I think we've introduced ourselves online. Of course, you'll get to know us better, but we have been working for Akivo for over 10 years now, and we delight in working with new and emerging leaders, and particularly in this sector, because our experience is much broader than that. But it is always a wonderful experience for us, a wonderful learning, collaborative learning journey that we enjoy very much, and love hearing from our past participants how well they're doing and what they're still taking forward from the programme. So as we look forward, we'll be doing that with you in just a few months' time when the programme's
and strangely, we've actually arranged to meet some of the people from the last programme on the night before we meet you for the first time. We're just going to meet them for a quick social and a drink, and it will be the first time we've met them face to face. So that's going to be interesting to see if we recognize them, apart from anything else.
The rest of our bodies. So today's session is really about the opportunity for us to put names to faces and start that process going, because of course in the face-to-face it will be fantastic. We will have the opportunity to chat and that thing that we've missed in times gone by, but today is going to give us, most of the space is going to be quick introductions from yourself. We'll check that you're up to speed on what we've done so far, and then we'll highlight or explain the process of the leadership competency review, and we'll be kickstarting that quite soon in terms of getting nominees from you. So we'll talk through that whole process with you, just highlight the next steps, and throughout, if there's any questions, we'll be delighted to answer those for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So well done everybody for getting registered online, and most of you I think have now completed the first 2 modules, which is great. We've had a chance to read them and respond to them. Just to remind you that when you complete your online responses, they're only seen by Rita and myself, and we will respond as your coaches throughout the programme. The forum is the place which is seen by everyone, and again, most of you have been on there. Thank you for that, and put a little introduction to yourself. So yeah, that's where we're at in the programme so far.
Excellent. So in terms of the structure and what we've done so far, is everyone comfortable with that? Any questions just about anything you've done so far? Is everyone quite content that we've kicked off? We're starting rolling. Yeah, I'm going to take that as a yes. No one's putting their hand up. Fantastic. What we have done on the online so far. Oh, Kevin, did we want to mention just about the additional ILM resources?
Oh yes, yeah, we can mention that now. So as hopefully you are aware, this program is accredited by ILM, Institute of Leadership and Management. And basically what that means is you are now signed up as student members of ILM, or you will be very, very soon. And that enables you to access all of the resources that are available online via ILM. And the other thing then is, on successful completion of this program, and what that means is having done all of your online and attended the workshops, etc., we will then notify ILM that you've successfully completed this program, and they will upgrade you to a professional member of ILM. So what we will do is throughout this program, we will signpost certain resources on the ILM side of things for you to reference for further reading. There's also some great questionnaires on there, you know, things like how good are you at strategic leadership, and there's sort of a 20-question questionnaire, and it's signposting you to various things to read as well. I had a go at a few more earlier on this week, actually. You can do them very quickly, but there's a whole host of things on there, so it's a great resource.
Excellent. So as Kevin said, we'll keep signposting you on the ones that align with the topics we're covering, and you'll have plenty of resources and new learning to call upon. So we started off on the online, the module, apart from sharing your objectives, and we're pleased to say from what we've read, you're definitely on the right programme, and we definitely feel confident that we'll be able to help you towards your outcomes. And the other module was really spotlighting a key aspect of the programme about your self-awareness. Of course, in leadership, there are many considerations about the different styles, and the styles can be cut in many, many ways. But one thing that we've learned, we've experienced, is that leadership comes from the individual. The authentic leadership comes from you understanding yourself. In terms of behaviours and approaches, you can learn all of that. But the core, the heart of a strong, powerful leader who brings people with them, heart and mind, soul and spirit, or whatever, is that the person, the leader themselves, is aware of themselves, aware of what their purpose, what they're about, their strengths and their development areas, and continue to be aware of that in a reflective way as they go through their day-to-day. And in understanding more about ourselves, what we often find is we start to get insights into other people too. And of course, it's that combination that makes for a good leader. So we looked at the Johari window. Were many of you familiar with that before? How many people already knew the Johari window? Ooh, I've lost the image of everyone now. Okay. That's it. Okay, sorry. So a few of you. It was new to the rest of you. I hope the explanation, I trust the explanation online did help. I mean, the principle is that we can have blind spots, that there's the arena that everyone knows about and sees. There can be blind spots, things we don't know about ourselves that other people see. That there's the facade of things people don't know about ourselves. So we know something, but we're choosing for whatever reason not to share it. And then there's this lovely little portion that's unknown. It's like our potential. We don't even know what's there. And that's a fantastic square at the bottom there. But we're growing to learn more and more and living through our potential. The key that the Johari window model encourages, and that we promote as well, is that having a larger arena, having more openness and honesty in your relationships with yourself and other people is probably the most beneficial in teams. It doesn't mean you have to share everything with everyone all the time, but to be considerate of what you are sharing and what you're not sharing and the difference it makes. So the way to expand that arena is in gaining and seeking and inviting feedback. So you find out more, so there's less things in your blind spot, and you can choose to do what you choose to do with that knowledge. And the other way is disclosure, actually sharing about yourself. Sometimes your concerns, and sometimes it's, that can be a bit challenging, can't it? We're making ourselves vulnerable. And like I said, it's not about opening up everything and every time, but it's a key to building trusting relationships. Often it's through that sharing of ourselves, and sometimes our concerns, sometimes it's what we're fantastic at and we've kept hidden under a bushel. But people actually knowing what is it that makes you tick as a person can be very beneficial. So I think that's the essence of it, Kevin, was there?
Yeah, well, just to say that the feedback seeking is something we'll be encouraging you to do. And of course, we'll be starting that process with the 360, which we'll talk more about at the end of this particular session. So in terms of disclosure, then, I think this is probably an opportune moment, Rita, to just to get them into a first little activity of today. So what we would like you to do is, so we can all put names to faces and know which organization you work for and what your role is, maybe how long you've been in the role. We're going to do it slightly differently, though, in that we're going to get you to pair up with somebody, and we'll give you a few minutes just to have a chat, the two of you, and then we would like you to briefly introduce the other person to us. So that way you get a chance to sort of have a little bit of a breakout and a discussion with somebody else. So how long will we give them, Rita?
We're planning on 10 minutes. I'm
Okay.
just doing a tiny little change around because, of course, when I've done the breakout rooms, we're in it ourselves.
Yeah,
So I just need to flick something around.
Okay.
Does 10 minutes still sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just have a chat and just be prepared to come back and tell us who they are, and then we might ask some supplementary questions to get to know you all a little bit better.
Yeah, so we were thinking of framing this one around, you know, what you're most looking forward to about the programme. Just to keep
that's a good question to ask as well. What are they most looking forward to about this programme?
Right, and I think I'll find I've put you all into your rooms. So you're in pairs and we will invite you back in 10 minutes. So a little introduction and what are you looking forward to most about the programme? We'll hear your voices. Okay, I'll pause recording. The recording again now. Excellent. So we know at least two of you had good chats, and I'm trusting everyone had good chats. And we're simply going to do that round robin, and we're going to invite you to introduce us to the person you were talking with. Just the high level, who are they, where they work, and if you got to the topic, what are they most looking forward to? That would be brilliant too. So is there a volunteer to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia.
And then everyone can learn from my mistakes. So I had the pleasure of meeting Charlotte Sansom. And Charlotte works for the National Deaf Children's Society, which she says is a great place to work. She's worked there for 5 years, and there's a lot of transformation taking place, but she's got a new exciting role, and it's the Deputy Director of Insight and Effectiveness, which she's been in from April. There's a big step now. It's a new team, developing new strategies, but Charlotte has high inspirations that the higher that she goes, the more influence that she can have.
Lovely. Very good. Excellent.
Fabulous.
Thank you,
So
Sonia.
lots of transformation, Charlotte.
Lots of transformation.
Yes, including joining us on the programme.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of
Well done for that. What's been the most challenging part, would you say, of the transformation?
I think because I'm in the heart, it's remembering that not everyone is there with us yet. So it's really sort of kind of trying to bring everyone along that journey.
Yeah. That's always worth keeping in mind, isn't it? Yeah.
We sometimes get very excited, don't we, about where we're going. We forget. Excellent. And Charlotte, would you like to introduce us to Sonia?
Yes, of course. I had the pleasure of chatting to Sonia. Sonia works for the Road Safety Trust and is a new CEO there as of July. A couple of weeks handover, so really kind of has been in the role for about 9 weeks now. And exciting, obviously very exciting stuff, but also I guess looking to learn on this course or to do some reflection on kind of how is there a certain way that you might be presenting yourself? You're a CEO, who do you to reassurance when you're the sort of the leader as it is, as it were, and also just I guess kind of the growing into that role and sort of growing as you go with something like that. So yeah, it was really interesting to meet Sonia. She's great.
Excellent. So Sonia, a question for you. That's very new into the CEO role. Well done, congratulations. I was just wondering what you found most surprising. You know, we have our expectations when we go into a new role. what surprised you most? What didn't quite, you weren't thinking it would be quite like that? What would be one of those?
It's I was saying to Charlotte, it's quite a big step for me going into this. What was quite refreshing was that when I went through the journey of actually becoming successful into the role, I didn't know whether the organisation was looking for an existing CEO or whether they were looking to grow their own. Thankfully, from my perspective, they were looking. So I've got really great support from my board, but I think it's also about finding that best way forward with a relatively small team, and there's a lot of change in the organisation. I'm talking to Charlotte, I'm very black and white. What you see is what you get. Authenticity is pretty much at the centre of who I am. But yeah, it's I think when you move into the role, it's all of a sudden it's okay, so who do I look to for that support? I found you know, I haven't got somebody, you know, that is officially above me. I have my chair. I treat him kind of like my line manager. But yeah, it does kind of feel a little bit like you're quite isolated, I would say, initially. So that reassurance of, am I doing a good job? Where does that come from?
Very useful insight shared by many people, that potential feeling of isolation in the role. And that is why, and I'm sure you appreciate that, this sort of network can be so useful, and any other peer support network you can continue to nurture, you know, from your past experiences and everyone you meet, lots of people in that same boat, and just keeping those lines of communication open can be fabulous support for you. Lovely meeting you too. Thank you.
Just one thing just to add there, that the program is predominantly people who are not yet into a CEO role, and that's absolutely fine. So it's great to have people who are newly into the role, just to get them into the mix as well, because there's so much that we can learn from each other as we go forward.
Well, the next volunteer who's waving their hand, is that Fiona? Oh, yeah. You go ahead, Fiona, and who are you going to introduce us to?
Happy to go. I'd like to introduce you to Georgina Hall. We had a lovely chat. Georgina is Director of Organisational Effectiveness at Respond. Respond is a national charity working with people with learning difficulties, disabilities, and autism who've experienced trauma. She's been there for about a year, and she's also a trustee of Carers First. She's been working for 14 years at director level, and is really thinking about whether looking for a CEO role is the right thing for her. She wants to make sure it's the right thing. She doesn't want to be a CEO for the sake of it, but she also has enjoyed consultancy roles. She's gone in to do improvement strategy, and is just kind of wondering, is it right for her? She's also, like me, a parent and living in London, and that's important to both of us too.
Yeah, brilliant. Georgina, I like the fact that you're not just going to be a CEO just for the sake of it. I think that's that's very wise. You're gonna consider whether it's the right role for you, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Excellent. I'm interested, you're a trustee of another charity, is it? Yeah,
Carers First.
Yeah. And did you do that because of the work that the charity does, or did you do it for experience, or bit of both?
I've been a trustee somewhere else before, but I guess so I wanted to carry on being a trustee, but I was attracted to the work, and I've been a carer myself, so I was kind of interested in it. I'm most driven by purpose and things that I connect with.
Yes, yeah. And would you say there are some advantages in being a trustee, seeing that other things?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think my first trustee role, I suddenly realised, that the knowledge gap. I think you don't realise, when you're caught up in the day-to-day detail, it definitely helps to be on the other side to kind of manage expectations. I think there's often a mismatch of expectations, I think, on both sides.
Yeah, I think many people have recommended that, and something for you all to think about, I think, is what would be the benefits of becoming a trustee of another organisation, just to get that different perspective on things.
And I think we've got a fair few people who are reading through your biogs, and I do think
good.
that's a very worthwhile from experience too. Great. Georgina,
Okay.
do you want to tell us a little bit about Fiona?
I'll tell you about Fiona. Fiona is the Director of Social Change at Homeless Link, which is a national membership body for homeless charities and providers. She's previously worked in local government and was a councillor, political leader. She's always been in senior leader roles, and she's trying to think, now that she's moved to the voluntary sector, whether the chief exec role might be of interest. We're kind of similar in this regard, I think. While she likes being a drawer, there are often times where she feels like she would like to lead and do something differently. She might feel frustrated, but she can also see that being a chief exec can look lonely, and that she's seen that it can take over their lives, and apparently she wants to have balance in life, and can see that people can get really burnt out. But that said, being a chief exec also feels attractive. So our talk kind of ended with her saying she felt torn. Said.
So that's not maybe the most comfortable place to be, but it leads on to something else. That aspect of being torn and I suppose identifying and prioritizing all those things we all want out of what we're doing. Yeah. Is that a comfortable place at the moment, Fiona, or is that like?
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's yeah, sometimes, but not. When I think, oh, I'd do that differently, and that's when I think, yeah, I should go for it and find something. And then other times I think, oh, actually, sometimes it's quite comfortable to not quite be in charge. So
Yes, yeah, and sometimes opportunities are what provokes it one way or the other, or anything. Who knows what it might be that tips the balance for you. Right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to another lot of introductions, and Catherine.
Thanks, Rita. So I had a really great chat with Beth Kennedy, and really interesting because we'd had such different experiences of the voluntary sector, and you almost couldn't really categorize those experiences both as but I guess that's one of the joys or challenges of the voluntary sector, is that there's all sorts in there. So Beth leads an organization which she didn't the name of, even though we talked about it a lot, but the organization is focused on a particular area in, as Beth described, deepest, darkest Cumbria, so a place called Alderstone, and the organization is focused on protecting community assets that are starting, I think, with one in particular, and then the remit of the organization has grown on the back of that, the success of that. So Beth's experience of her role now is that working within the voluntary sector can be very restricted or restricting, and with lots and lots of different involved, it can be difficult to reach consensus and make progress. And Beth also referred to it feeling very lonely, which is something I'm really looking forward to us covering in this programme, because from my perspective, it's the one thing that CEOs consistently talk about when they talk about the CEO experience is loneliness. So Beth's certainly looking forward to working as part of a peer group within the programme.
Excellent. Wow. And Beth, what was the name of your organisation then?
It's called Ulverston Community Enterprises, but we have one enterprise in particular, which is called the Corro. It's an arts and culture venue in a small rural town. Catherine said, deepest, darkest Cumbria.
Oh, the sunniest, most glorious on some days.
Absolutely, not today.
Absolutely.
So is Ulverston, is that further up in the north of Cumbria, or is that south?
All the way south, yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's near Barrow, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. I lived in Cumbria for 2 years, actually, but up in the north. So,
right. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And Beth, are you the CEO of the organisation?
The director is my, yeah.
The director.
Yeah.
Okay.
So executive director, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Wow, that sounds quite diverse in what you're doing there, Beth. And Beth, you're going to introduce Catherine to us, please.
Indeed. So Catherine Seymour's head of strategy at the Mental Health Foundation, which is a big organisation, which is, as it sounds, focused on mental health, but more in terms of prevention rather than the provision of mental health services. So Catherine's role is sort of split between those two areas, the research area, which she's responsible for, but the strategy area is the area that she's more recently moved in as more of an overarching view of the organisation. And that's the area that's really brought her here, because having that 360 view of the strategic direction of the organisation is something that is more to being in a leadership role of an organisation. She's keen to investigate that more, see what that looks like, hear from different people. And that kind of brings us on to what she's most looking forward to about this experience, which is the peer group and learning from others in the role or aspiring to be in the role and so forth. Catherine mentioned kind of our super different experiences. So Catherine was talking about the fact that coming from a previously corporate background, that actually she feels like there's so much room to do much more. There's more of a free rein. And I was talking about how, because responsible in my organisation for community assets, we have a lot of stakeholders.
Yeah.
and that can be quite constricting. So it was really interesting that we had we both kind of come from experiences within the voluntary sector, as she said.
That is fascinating, and it's often a topic of conversation, you know, the difference between the private sector and the charity or civil sector, and it's almost as different as, or how long is a piece of string. It's almost that there'll be some experiences that are very similar, some that are very different, and something that sometimes I find that I'm countering in people's opinions, or challenging or inviting people to explore, is the idea that they're so different, that charities, because they're led by a purpose often that's so dear to their heart, that there's more purpose driven in the charitable sector. So I personally believe and have experience of organisations, any organisation needs to be purpose driven to work efficiently and well aligned. So there isn't that the difference. There is a heart difference, but it is fascinating to, you know, when you get a group of people like ourselves, just to notice how it is. And we've often, you know, having the mix of people from the private sector organisations or the big corporates together with, there's so much learning there as well. So in your peer support group, we'd be encouraging you to make those connections as well outside of the sector. The sector, you know, obviously has its own nuances and everything, but there is a lot to learn and a lot to give, a lot for, you know, the closeness of the board and the way things operate often is a learning sometimes for private sector organisations. So that's just a call for broad networking and keeping your ears and eyes open to what we can learn and what we can share within and without the sector, really.
Catherine, what's the biggest difference you've noticed between moving from the private sector into the voluntary sector?
Well, I suppose it would be what Beth and I discussed, which was, I felt just incredible freedom. And I worked as a management consultant for a large firm where we did what we were known for and what our client wanted, and that was it. That was absolutely it. And we had very clear ways of this is the solution that we roll out. Whereas in the voluntary sector, it feels like that's all up for grabs. And I think I've been probably lucky to work for two different charities, both of which were national charities, and weren't too worried about income. So actually, that's where you've got the most freedom, I think. Freedom to make an impact, but freedom to pick and choose priorities. And that was sort of mind-blowing for me, that actually, as an organisation, we don't even have members to consult. We can just decide how we make both best use of change. But of course, that's the rub as well. Is without having those clear boundaries, the possibilities are almost endless. And trying to be inclusive and work with staff and our audiences to make decisions can be really hard, and certainly involves making choices that are not always popular.
Yes, yeah. And that's the topic we'll be looking at, this idea of communicating perhaps difficult decisions to people. You know, how can we best do that? I think one thing that always struck us working in this particular sector is the diversity. And you know, we've heard in there working in organisations where money was not a problem. I'm sure looking round, some of you that's quite a concern, and others of you will have memberships as well. So again, it's great to have a diverse group on the programme that we can share experiences with.
Okay, thank you both. And someone else's hand's going to pop up any moment. Is that Debbie? Thank you, Debbie. And
yeah, I thought we'd dive in.
Good on you.
Okay, so I had a great discussion with Gareth. I think there were lots of similarities. So Gareth, I'm going to try not to steal any of your thunder and keep it quite concise. So Gareth works at the Chiltern Centre, which looks after young adults with disabilities, and it's a 4-bedded unit. So he has to deal with CQC inspections and all that stuff, which is challenging. He became the manager in really difficult circumstances in 2019 when the organisation was failing, and he was the deputy. So he took over, and he had to go through a very fast learning curve because his previous manager shielded, don't know whether that's the right use of words, but he didn't know a lot of the things like how the budgets worked and the inspections, and because he was going from children's services to adults. So it was difficult. But he's really turned a corner with it. They now have built up a really good reputation, and there's an increase in demand for their service. So it's a very pivotal time, and they're trying to move from 4 beds to 6 or 7 beds, and also get a building which is fit for purpose. So they're going through you know, a whole extra project as well as organising and leading the organisation. It's capital funding, I presume. So what he's wanting to do is develop his team so that in the future he can have a registered manager and he can work much more strategically. And what he really wants to do is, I think, quite similar to me, which is develop his leadership styles. Because we both spoke around how we had no formal leadership training, and we just kind of learned on the job and learned from observing other people, not necessarily in our organisations. And I think that a big concern for us is our blind spots, and you know, perhaps we need just a bit more confidence and to benchmark ourselves.
Yeah, excellent. So Gareth took over in 2019, stepped up. Failing organisation. And then COVID the next year. Not had it easy then.
No, not really. No. It was kind of massive stuff because we're a small independent charity. So it went from not just from sort of the operational side being responsible from a perspective. It was working with the board and being part of strategic decisions as well. So it was kind of a sort of drop in the ocean. And then it hit, and unfortunately we had to cease operations for about 4 months, and then obviously start that back up again. But we're in as Debbie said, we're on our local town plan. There's a public referendum in November, so fingers crossed. Some land, a local developers developing some land, so donated us some land. So we've just got to raise a few £1 million for a new build. But it's just to become have more strategic side to the business, really.
And that's certainly something that we'll be looking at on the programme. because that is quite a challenge for some people, you know, moving away from the operational, and particularly if that operational side of things has been your passion and something you've been very, very good at. You know, how can you get hands off on that now, let go of some of the things, and start to think strategically more long term? So
yeah, I think that me and Debbie both. Yeah, me and Debbie said we kind of find that a bit difficult, especially coming from sort of being operational and having to. I think it's, you know, being able to give responsibility to others is, you know, but it's, as Debbie, I'll talk about Debbie in a minute. But it's it's about succession planning and getting that in place. Really. But yeah.
Great. So tell us about Debbie, Gareth.
So I'll say Debbie works for Teesside Hospital, hospice, sorry, which is based in the northeast of England. She's been with the organisation for 17 years. Starting off as a marketing officer, then marketing manager, fundraising manager, but she's now director of income generation. Because to run business or the organisation they need 6 million a year, and only a third come from the NHS. So if my maths is right, they need to raise £4 million. So she's responsible for quite a large team, obviously involved in fundraising, through grants and trusts. They've got a lottery with 12,000 people, which I thought was extremely impressive. Obviously, they've got some retail shops. But she's, as we said earlier, she's looking to obviously become more strategic. She's a good team, she said. A young team, but they're willing to learn. And she wants to obviously succession plan as well, and leave behind the operational tasks, which she said she finds difficult. She did have a bit of an imposter syndrome where she thinks that sometimes not quite aware of what she does or whether she's doing anything. And we did talk a lot about the blind side of what we don't know about ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you, Gareth. Debbie, Teesside Hospice.
Yes.
I've got a feeling that we've had somebody from your organisation as a guest speaker on our programme.
David Smith.
David Smith, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, so he's my chief exec. So he came into post nearly 4 years ago, and I touched on this with Gareth. He really had a completely different leadership style, and it's a style that I've grown hugely with. He basically kind of presented what the future could look like and said to me, it's up for grabs. And we just, he gave me complete autonomy. I ran with it, and my development, I can't even believe it. So now I've got a very inspirational leader, but that I can mirror things from, but I am all about being authentic, and it's about finding your own way. But
absolutely.
Perhaps I'm not articulating that very well, but I've got a very, very good role model, but I want to do it my way. He's given me a lot of confidence, but I definitely need to now, you know, and he's given me permission. This team, I need to go away from the operational, focus on the strategic, and I think that I'm getting confused with giving my leaders support operationally and showing them the strategy in the future. I think
you articulated it beautifully, Debbie.
Very beautifully, and some very sharp awareness there as to where you're at the moment and where you're wanting to go. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, on day 2 of the program, the workshop 2, we will be inviting a guest CEO speaker to you. As I said, David was one of the ones before, and he went down a storm. But they always do, really, and there's so much we can learn from them. So we'll tell you more about that a little bit later.
Excellent. Next hands up. Getting close to it. Thank you, Carolyn.
Oh, so hi there. I got to meet Jodie a little bit more in the breakout room. Jodie works for the EY Foundation, which is a national organisation and Jodie has an role as CEO currently. I think you've worked your way up in the organisation, and I think most thing you're looking forward to from this course is to learn new skills that are universally applicable. So outside the organisation, skills you can take with you later on. I think that was about right, Jodie, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I'm based in Manchester.
Brilliant. And that's wonderful to hear about taking on generic skills, and leadership skills are so generic. They help us in every aspect of our lives. That's a lovely insight. And Jodie, just hearing that though, is that because where are you in your decision making, if there is on your agenda about the CEO role? Is it that you're thinking you just don't know what you want to do, but you know you want to keep learning and developing as a leader?
No, so I'm actually doing two jobs at the moment. So I'm doing my substantive role as well as the interim role as well. Our CEO is on maternity leave until next year. So that's sort of the situation I'm in. And I think I've had aspirations to be CEO for a while, so I do feel like I will do that at some stage. I'm not in necessarily a massive rush to leave where I am because I'm very happy with the organisation I'm in, and the CEO role within our organisation won't be up for grabs, if you like, anytime soon. So Lynn's not going anywhere because she's only just recently become substantive in role anyway, despite going off on maternity leave. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll get many skills that you can take forward into whatever you're doing. Excellent.
Yeah, I think for me that point about I know this organisation really well, right? And like the CEO role, but I think it's probably different doing it in somewhere that you're really familiar with to going somewhere new. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's that for me about maybe some of the things I don't know in the setting.
Yes,
that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Perhaps someone like Sonia, who's come into a new role and gone in as CEO, will have a lot of experience of that as well to share, of course, as other people on the group.
You have to start somewhere. Everybody does.
And Jodie, tell us a little bit about Carolyn, please.
So I was speaking to Carolyn, who is also CEO at the Eastleigh Youth and Community Trust. So she's quite recently taken on that role, but has been in the organisation itself for about 4 years doing a variety of different things. So she's spending a lot of time at the moment focusing on establishing the right structures and stuff in her team, and doing a lot of that kind of thing. And from this course, she's interested in, I guess, and more confidence in her own abilities, I think, is one of the main things. And just because it's the first time that she's been, I suppose, the top dog, so that all works in practice. And then obviously interested in looking at different models of leadership and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. It's only dawned on me that you're working in the same organisation, and that's why you said when you were speaking to Jodie, Carolyn, you had a longer cover getting to go.
Yeah, charity is quite similar.
Explain that to me again. Sorry, did I get that wrong?
Yeah, we're different organisations.
But you knew each other already? No.
Just very friendly people.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just very good then. That's perfect for to get in my head. Sorry. So Kevin was going to ask Carolyn something. Sorry.
Well, I'm just going to emphasise for everybody really that one of the key aims of this programme is to give you a sense of what the CEO role is all about. So if you are in a position where you're really not sure, and you may even be in the CEO role or in interim CEO or whatever, one of the key things that you'll get from this program is a sense of what it's like. And some people go through the program and then decide it's not for them, and that's fine. That's kind of a win-win as well. The other thing I was going to say is that what you will find with this program, and this might surprise some of you, is that we're going to give you a set of very practical hands-on skills that you can use immediately, whether you're a CEO or not. So that's one of the things that people feed back on the program, that, you know, I got so much out of it that I can apply immediately. And of course, going forward into my CEO journey, if that's the way I want to go. But you know, the emphasis from us is on giving you things that you can put into practice straight away.
So I trust that suits everyone's aspirations or expectations. As we are rushing and we're just moving on. Thank you, Carolyn and Jodie. Next hand up, please. Okay, I spotted Charlie first, but whether that's right or not, I don't know. My eye scan. So Charlie, over to you.
Hello, everyone. So I had a lovely chat with Matt, and Matt works for Toynbee Hall, and they oversee Debt Free London, and he's the managing director of Debt Free London. And Debt Free London offer face-to-face advice for people that are having serious challenges with their debt, and often at very difficult stages. The charity has grown considerably. So he's been there for 4 years and started, I think, with a team of 4, Matt, did you say originally? A very small team. And he now oversees across over 184 people across a team across London, working, that comes with working with other charities and working with other consultants that provide services for Debt Free London. And previously worked with a charity called London Youth that oversaw many youth clubs across the whole of London as well. What he's looking forward to is being part of this community of people with so much experience, and with the opportunity to find out from other people's experiences of being in different roles, and being part of that sort of that sharing of knowledge and wealth of skills.
Fabulous. Thank you, Charlie. Matt, does that sound like you?
Perfect.
Quite an expansion there of the role in terms of what you're doing in a short space of time. Quite changes for you.
It's been an interesting 4 years. I'm not entirely sure it was the job I thought I was applying for when I did.
And that can be the case too, I think, fairly frequently for people. But where you're sitting at the moment, I'm going to ask you a very deep question now. You anticipate you'll be there a while yet? I mean, who knows what might happen, but at the moment you're currently enjoying those challenges? Or
yeah, I mean, who knows? I've kind of said in my career that you kind of do things in 5-year intervals, and you know, you come in and see a challenge, come up with a plan, implement it, and then it's time for somebody else with a fresh pair of eyes to take on the next chapter. So I'm about to start my 4th.
Whoa, 4 or 5. Oh, okay. Good timing to just do this program then and to look around.
Already thinking strategically, Matt.
Yeah.
I do try sometimes.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that time span, that time frame to put on it. In fact, we'll look at time frames in some online in the coming weeks. Thank you very much. Matt, would you like to tell us a little bit about Charlie?
I'd love to. I had a great conversation with Charlie. So Charlie is the head of teacher support at the Ogden Trust, which is a science education charity set up by Sir Peter Ogden as an individual who I didn't know much about, but apparently made his fortune in the 80s and 90s in the computer industry, and was very passionate about kind of STEM in schools, so set up that. As I said, so Charlie's in the role of head of teacher support, which is a new role that she's been in since July, but she's actually been at the organisation for 5 years, and previously as a programme manager. So now she's previously overseeing kind of consultants in that old role and external people, but now managing a team of 2 program managers and 5 or 6 kind of regional teams that are all direct employees. So a different step there. And as an organisation where it's all kind of previously been self-funded by one individual entrepreneur, they've recently got some Department of Education funding for their programs, which is the first time there's kind of an external funder who's also a government agency, so learning around the government funding and their KPIs and expectations as well. And before working at the Ogden Trust, trained as a science teacher, and the bit that I found really interesting, exciting, also in a circus school previously as well. And from this program is looking around to gain skills around how to be an effective leader whilst being a manager at the same time.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Very good. Wow.
So were you doing science, Charlie, in the circus school, or?
No, the circus was in between. The circus was juggling and stilt walking and unicycling.
Okay.
All across London, teaching young people circus. So that was a charity as well. So I was a program manager in a charity, and we didn't have funding in the circus school, so I was doing a lot of our grant applications and grant funding in that role. So now it's I'm grateful to be working for a charity that's self-funded, so we can make a lot of autonomous decisions about what programs we want to run and how we run those programs.
Yeah. And how much has the dynamic of the organisation changed now the funding model has changed?
So hugely. Again, we're in a big point of change, like I think quite a lot of people are in their own organisations. So our organisation has grown in the last 5 years from having, I think, 5 or 6 full-time staff, and I think we're now up to sort of 16. So, you know, increasing in size. My role didn't exist before, so it's a completely new role that I've taken on, that the organisation has created because of the funding and because of some other programs we want to start. So yes, huge opportunity for change, opportunity for me to really develop what my own role is. So I think this is what was important for me to come on this course, so that I can learn those skills and apply that to creating this sort of new role and which direction I want to take it in.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Lots of changes. Thank you. We've got 2 more pairs left, if my counting's right, and a hand shooting up quickly. Was that you, Ed? Over to you, Ed.
Hi, so I was chatting with Dave, and he is Director of Finance and Infrastructure at the Devon Ambulance Trust, and he started as Director of finance, which is something that's got a really strong background in. He used to be an auditor and taken on infrastructure, which is the facilities and IT side as well recently. And that's loads of additional stuff. And he was just saying it's great, he's got a really strong team, and so that's going well. And he is hoping that this course puts him in a position to make the most of opportunities coming up. So not necessarily like looking at grabbing something straight away, but if something does come up, making sure that actually, you know, he can do that, broadening his skill set, but mainly actually again about the peer group and about kind of knowing who you can talk to and develop with and go to support when you're thinking about things. And yeah, I think that was it. Does that sound right, Dave?
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Excellent.
Dave, you're based in Devon, yeah?
Yeah, just by Exeter. So yeah, down in Devon, which is a great place to live.
Okay, and it's just ambulances, not air ambulance as well? Or?
Yeah, it's air ambulance. Yeah, so we've got two helicopters, and also run a couple of clinical cars now as well. But until a couple of years ago, it was just the 2 aircraft. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. My son-in-law is just about to start a role with the air ambulance up in Yorkshire, actually.
Oh yeah, I've been speaking to him this week actually around the sort of investments and random bits and pieces. But yeah, we don't always have a lot of contact with the Yorkshire Air Ambulances, and tend to be a little bit more independent than some of the other air ambulances. But yeah, I've been chatting to them this week, so no, I'm sure we've enjoyed that role. Be good fun.
That's Yorkshire for you.
And you're out to make the most of it, be ready for any opportunities and looking out and keeping your eyes open and peeled for opportunities. So that sounds a really good place to be at, Dave, in terms of the approach to the programme and what might happen in the coming years. And would you like to tell us a bit about Ed, Dave?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, had a very enjoyable conversation with Ed. I think we're both happy it was a remote conversation because she's got a bit of flu and I've got COVID at the moment. So yeah, so I think if we were meeting in person, we might not be meeting today at all. So yeah, nice, enjoyable chat. So Ed is the head of service and service development for the Turnerby Hall, which is an East London charity. which it sounds like it's got quite a broad range actually, but it comes to anti-poverty, some community support services, and it's been in place since 1884, which made me feel very young, which was a good thing. But yeah, so I joined about 5 years ago. Initially it's potentially relatively short role, but it's absolutely loved it, and I can understand why, because like I said, it does sound really, really diverse, lots of going on. So really enjoying that role there. Historically had sort of more of a background in disability charities, but sort of saying this opportunity came up, it's become a really interesting role for her. And really what I'm most looking forward to is spending some time to really think about her own skills and priorities. So I think particularly in the last couple of years with everything that's been going on, you can get quite head down and spending a lot of time thinking about other people's skills and other people's priorities, but to actually take some time to stand back and think of her own, which I think makes perfect sense.
Absolutely, perfect sense. Well done both of you for being so alert on the call, and I trust you both get better very soon, or anyone else who isn't feeling 100%. Ed, that's such a key point, and again the feedback we get from so many people, having the time out. And I think particularly this last couple of years when we are talking to leaders, particularly in the sector, it's been about giving and caring and looking out for everyone around you and changing strategies and doing the firefighting and everything else in the early days. And what's happened for many people is, whew, it's like there's a little bit, what about me? It's time for that. The course itself, and it is a call for you to actually schedule out time for yourselves to put into this. The time and space you have in meetings, that's all going to happen, and that in itself is incredibly valuable. It's worthwhile, if you haven't done it already, to look ahead at your schedules and block out time. When people say I haven't got time to do it, who chooses what you do? It's you. So if you can put it in, and Ed, I think that's great that you're seeing that as an opportunity to just actually say, hey, where am I at and what do I want and where am I going? That's brilliant. Is there a specific aspect, or is it a general development? Is there one specific area you're most keen on exploring?
I mean, I think it is that I've spent so much time thinking about, I mean, it's other people's capabilities and how to build those, that in order to give people space to build their own capabilities, you end up taking on elements of their workload to give them that space. And so for me, it's about actually doing that assessment, not necessarily gaining the skills in this time, but being able to do that assessment of my own capabilities, because I've got time to do it, and then I can make a plan.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. And sometimes we forget all that we've done. Sometimes that's part of the reflection process, isn't it? You know, we've all moved on from 2 years in 5 years, and sometimes we forget. And another reason for asking people, what are we doing well, when we're asking for feedback, to remind ourselves that we have got these skills. By my reckoning, we've got one pair of introductions left, and that's Sorrel and Christy. Is that right? One of you shout then.
I'll go first so I can see Christy still on mute. Yeah, so Christy and I had a really nice conversation. She works for the Young Lives Foundation, which is an organisation who supports vulnerable children. So we were talking about these are kind of children who are on the edge of care or just leaving care. And it's a Kent-based regional organisation, but Christy had also had some experience when that shifted. She was working within a much larger national organisation, and now it's gone back that she's based in this regional organisation again. So she's kind of had those different experiences of working within different scales of organisation. But she started very much kind of at the front line when she started in that field, and she joined that charity in 2010. So that meant that one of the things she's really looking forward to in this course is a theme that's already come up, but that mindset shift of how to think in that strategic leadership way and pull away from the kind of the front line, the doing bit, into the leadership mindset, and to develop those skills.
Thank you.
Christy, how have you found that transition so far, you know, moving out from something that you were involved in operationally?
I found it really challenging because I managed the services that I was frontline for.
Yeah.
And so I've hatched these services and they've done really well, and you have this really kind of, I guess, selfish ownership over things, and I have to pull myself from kind of micromanaging. So all the things that I expect from my boss, autonomy and being able to be creative, I know that I need to do that for my teams, but it's very hard, particularly because the nature of the work we do is so much around safeguarding, and of a really serious nature for very vulnerable young people who are in the care system. And so there's that pressure where you almost, I feel I control it because I can't let it go wrong.
Yes.
Because it's someone, it's not just about my workers and my team, it's for a whole. So I found it really challenging. I'm getting there. I think I'm getting better. I have to pull back, but it's about, I kind of put in some of my answers about it's the performance management, isn't it? Being able to create that pathway for people, but like I was saying, without letting the service standards drop while people are experimenting in their way.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
So shall I
That'd be lovely, thank you,
Sorrel. So as Sorrel mentioned before, she's in a tiny, I don't think it's a cupboard, but a really tiny little office room with no window.
Kind of is a cupboard, yeah.
It's a cupboard, a glorified cupboard. So she's doing really well to sit in that for the length of this meeting without moving. Sorrel is the Director of Research, Policy and Support for Sarcoma UK, which is a bone and soft tissue charity. She's been there for about 2.5 years. And said that she's enjoying it, so that's good. The thing that Sorrel says she's looking forward to really the most, or looking from this programme, is to really understand a little bit more about what being a CEO is, so that she can reflect on her own kind of career progression and make those decisions on if it's something that she'd like to look towards doing. So I think we were quite similar on that kind of position, weren't we, Sorrel?
Absolutely.
Just lastly, although we got cut out before we confirmed, so Sorrel was saying she manages about 10 people at the moment, but we both couldn't remember how many people we manage, which is a bit embarrassing. We were jotting down notes, but approximately 10, I think we said, didn't we, Sorrel?
Oh, so that's both of you, did you say, are doing about 10 each? Thereabouts. Thereabouts.
I was a bit embarrassed.
Names and what they look like.
I looked and it's 13 for me, so I felt a bit embarrassed that I wasn't able to answer the question.
Well, I'm sure you're interacting with them all in the most appropriate way, and that's what's most important than counting them as numbers. Sorrel, that sounds very exciting. Are you choosing to sit in the cupboard just because it's the only quiet spot, or it's not where you think you work?
So I happen to be on another training course today, so I've been able to sneak out for a while. But it's in one of our donors works in a very fancy law firm, so he's allowed us to come to this very fancy space. So I'm in one of their kind of tiny cubby holes where they make phone calls. It's very cozy.
Okay, well, and so you're developing all over the place because you're at a training course today doing something totally different, are you?
Yes.
Brilliant.
And well done, Sorrel, because I think you said you might only be able to join us for the first half an hour. So,
well, I'll be discreet. I won't name the training course, but it is not a very good one. So I was very pleased to prioritise this course and join you for the whole time.
Okay, so well done.
Delightful that you've been with us the whole time. That says something too, doesn't it? Fabulous.
Prioritising effectively.
Well done. It is now though 23 minutes past, so I'm going to that absolutely fantastic. I'm sure everyone got a lot just from hearing and putting names to faces, and how much we're going to be looking forward to meeting everyone in person. Just one point, we paired you up totally randomly for this particular session, but it's delightful when you all introduced each other how useful you were finding your conversation. So we're inviting you to maintain that relationship for the duration and post the duration of the program as a buddy. And the commitment there would be to contact each other. You make your contract, whatever it is, but I'd suggest either once a week or once a fortnight, just pick up the phone, just touch base. In terms of talking about the topics you're learning, that, you know, research time and time again proves that that connection, talking about it, articulating, and having connections with people throughout programs can really help embed the learning and make it personal and most useful and effective for you, which is what it's all about. So please keep in.
And on a practical note, we're going to be sending something out to you tomorrow. What we will also do is include people's email addresses so you can contact them. Yeah.
Unless anyone puts their hand up now and says you'd rather not share, we'll share it openly, a full list of contact details. Yes, that's fine. Excellent. We've got a practical thing we want to share with you now. It's about the fabulous 360 review process that you're all going to participate in, which is again another key element that people have found so beneficial. So Kevin, you're just going to talk us through the practicalities.
Indeed. So just a little quote just to lead us into this one. One of the hardest things of leadership is understanding that you are not what you are, but what you're perceived to be by others. And this kind of links into the Johari window activity that we got you to do online. And as part of this, then, we're going to be focusing on the 360. And some time ago now, Akivo members came up with a set of 6 competencies, and I'll display that in this way so you can see it better. And these are the 6 competencies that they thought would be the most beneficial for civil society leaders. So making things happen, working together, developing people, inspiring and influencing, creating the vision, which is the strategic side of things, and caring for yourself and others. So the 360 is basically inviting people to give you feedback on how you are doing against those 6 competencies. And we will be sending out to you a self-assessment, which will look something like this. I know you can't see all of the detail on there, but this is the making things happen competency, what's called the action catalyst. And what you can see here is there is a sliding scale from 0 to 10, and there are behavioral statements for each of these bandings. So the idea is, and this is all explained in the instructions, but the idea is that you read from left to right these behavioral statements, and you see which set fits you the best. And so if you decide it's this banding here, you may decide that these statements are being fully lived out, or you may decide that it's kind of a developing towards. So, you know, we just want you to rate yourself against this competency as a level 4 or a 6 or an 8, maybe even a 10, who knows. So the self-assessment will come out to you tomorrow for each of these 6 competencies. What we are also asking that you do, this is just describing a little bit about the bandings themselves. So this is just a rule of thumb for people who are exhibiting the competency at the organizational leadership level. That would be around a 7 and 8. Leading the sector would be sort of 9 and 10. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb in terms of the way those bandings work. Now, here's what we want you to do. You'll get an email tomorrow. There will be the self-assessment, and we would like the self-assessment back against those 6 competencies by Monday the 17th of October. So it'll probably take you certainly under an hour, I would say, to do it, but you've got plenty of time. It doesn't need to be back till the 17th of October. Now, what we want you to do by this coming Monday is to think about who you would like to review your competency set. And what we would recommend, that the main criteria is that it's people who have seen you operating, ideally in your current role, or it may be in a previous role, but people who would have some knowledge about how you are performing. That's the main criteria. Now, we would like you to nominate 6 individuals, and this is what we recommend to give some breadth to the reviewers in question. So one is, who do you report into? So it may be your CEO or it may be your chair. 2 people who you consider to be from your peer group. So, you know, that can be other senior managers, or it can be people from outside the organization. It may be even trustees. So, you know, we'll let you decide the specifics on that. And then finally, 3 people who report directly to you. So that way you're getting a good cross-section of views in terms of how they are seeing you exhibit those competencies. So we would like you to think about who those 6 people would be, and to have a quick conversation with them to get their agreement to be part of this process. We would like you, there will be a little template to complete, just giving us their details, and we would like that back ideally by Monday. What happens then is we will write out to them, giving them the assessment to complete, and we will be asking them to complete that by Friday the 21st of October. So they'll have sort of a week and a half to complete it. Then in the week of the 24th, Rita and I will be doing all of the processing and the report writing, and then we will personally, Rita and myself, will feed back to you personally in the week of the 31st of October. So we'll be asking you for your availability. The session will be about 45 minutes. It'll obviously be one-to-one, and we'll do it over Zoom. So we'll be asking you for your availability at the start of that week. A lot of this was detailed in the overview document that you received, but we thought it would be useful to go through it now, basically. So we will talk you in that 45-minute session. We'll talk you through the findings, you know, what it means, and we'll have a little discussion about what areas do you want to focus on in terms of your future development, having seen this feedback. Straight after the call, we will then send you a comprehensive report giving you a lot more detail. Now, I don't know how many of you have done a 360 before. People find this incredibly beneficial and a real key part of the program. 1 or 2 of you may have some anxieties about, you know, asking people to feedback and what are they going to say, but overall the response is very, very positive, and the learning that you can get from this activity is incredible. We'll also be giving you that benchmark against other CEOs, so you'll get a sense of, you know, where you are on your journey, and I know that's important to you from what's been said today. So I think that's about everything.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
Just to confirm that the respondents' responses are confidential.
Yeah.
So they're not presented to you with a name attached to them, just to reassure them of that, if that made a difference to them. If we do ask for open feedback, which is articulated, and we share that verbatim, and they'll be advised of that. So the whole process, we run that directly with your respondents. And I think that was it, Kevin, unless has anyone got any questions? We will be sending out an email with all the detail as well. Does that seem all right? What we have as next steps, then I'll quickly just share with you. So we will be putting up tomorrow, you'll get an email all about your 360 and with your own self-assessment. Tomorrow we will also, I'll record this and pop this on as a module together with some of the slides with the next steps and everything else on for you as well into your learning portal. And then you'll respond to us next week, and we're all going to see each other on is it the 19th, 18th or 19th?
It is the 19th, yeah.
In London. So we're all really looking forward to that. And it's been absolutely fabulous meeting you. And I would love you, if you've got another 2 minutes or even less, just to pop something in the chat, because this is a nice thing to share. Could you just pop in the chat and I'll capture them all and share them back online with you. How you're feeling about looking about the programme. What's just a sentence, even just a word that says, how are you feeling now about being part of this programme with this lovely peer group you have here? Excited sounds very, very good. Very good.
And also, while you're doing that, if anybody has any questions about the logistics of the programme going forward, just open up your mics and ask us now.
I have a quick question. I don't have 3 direct reports, so could I use a direct report from a previous role, or
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's that real criteria. Who's seen you the most performing in the role, I think. Yeah. And
there's that question, do I want to ask people who are going to give me lovely feedback? All feedback's lovely feedback, but you know, sometimes you might choose that person where the relationship hasn't been quite the way you want it to be, for that very reason, to understand more. So that's the sort of consideration.
Sonia, did you have a... Yeah, thanks, Kevin. The 360 feedback with yourselves week commencing the 31st, can that be rearranged? Because I'm not actually here that week, I'm on holiday.
Yeah, we can find another time, Sonia, for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm gathering that we're all quite excited and positive and empowered and energized, and very sorry that they're having to go, Ed. That's fantastic. I'll capture all those and pop them on something. It has been, we are excited before we meet you, and then when we meet you, it's like, yes, we're all in the right place. And so powerful. How many of you have remarked about the importance of the peer group, having that network? We've got that mindset shift from manager operational to strategic and leading. We've got understanding your own style, understanding yourself as a leader and building on that, and finding out what's this CEO role really about in terms of our decision making moving forward. So it's all fabulous. So it leaves us to all open the mics and say cheerio to each other until we meet again. So just on my
2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.